During one of his fishing expeditions, a small gray kitten unexpectedly approaches a fisherman, emitting soft meows and gently rubbing against his legs. Despite the man's attempt to pet the kitten, it exhibits skittish behavior, almost as if pleading for assistance. As the fisherman comprehends the kitten's distress, an unforeseen turn of events unfolds. Johnny and his friend were fishing at the river for a long time, but they didn't catch any fish. Lately, all the fishermen were having the same problem. They were going home with empty nets because there weren't many fish in the river anymore. Just when Johnny was about to give up and go home, he heard a cat meowing nearby. He looked around but couldn't see where the sound was coming from until his friend pointed in the direction of the noise. There, Johnny saw a small gray kitten approaching him. It was so tiny that he had to squint to see it clearly. The kitten came up to Johnny fearlessly, hopping over rocks and grass, meowing all the way. It rubbed against Johnny's boots and he squatted down to pet it. The kitten was adorable and Johnny's heart melted at its cuteness. Johnny wondered if the kitten was lost, so he asked it, "Are you lost, little fella?" But the kitten just meowed in response. Johnny thought that such a young kitten shouldn't be away from its mother. He tried to pick it up, but the kitten dodged his grasp and meowed louder. Johnny's friend laughed, saying the kitten was teasing him. But Johnny felt like the kitten was trying to tell him something important, maybe that it needed help finding its mom. He decided to search for the kitten's mother and asked his friend to help him look. Together, they looked under bushes and behind rocks, all to no avail. They came to the conclusion that the poor kitten was all alone, if its mother was not close by. Johnny wondered how the kitten got this close to the river. A sudden thought broke his heart. Perhaps someone's cat had a litter and they didn't want the kittens. Instead of finding other people to adopt them, they simply threw them out. What a cruel thing to do, Johnny thought to himself. With nothing left to do, he and his friend began to pack up their fishing equipment. As for the kitten, Johnny finally managed to grab it and put it in his coat pocket. The little cat stuck its head out and clawed at the fabric, meowing loudly. It didn't seem very happy in its current situation. Johnny wondered whether it would be more comfortable here in the middle of the woods despite being all alone. Perhaps it was a stray, but someone was caring for it here in the wild. As he debated putting it down and leaving, he was suddenly stopped in his tracks by the sound of another cat mewing. Johnny looked to the left and saw another kitten, a tabby this time, mewing at them while maintaining distance. He started approaching it, but it scurried away and hid behind a bush. The kitten in his pocket meowed and jumped out, running towards the second cat. The tabby popped its head out of the bush and rubbed its nose against the gray kitten's nose. Johnny realized then that they knew each other. They were probably related. Now there were two stray cats and no mother or owner. The possibility that they'd been abandoned by some irresponsible person was getting more real by the second. The gray kitten ran back to Johnny with his brother behind it. Still hesitant, Johnny picked up the gray cat and put it back in his pocket. This time, the kitten simply stuck his head out and nuzzled against the fabric. Finally satisfied, Johnny realized that the poor thing had been begging him not to leave his brother all alone in the woods. He didn't know what he was going to do with the two cats, but he still squatted down and extended his hand to the tabby kitten, letting him sniff his hand and get used to his scent. Eventually, the tabby rubbed his head against his hand. Johnny knew then that he had gained a bit of the kitten's trust. It was almost nightfall, so he hurriedly scooped him off the floor and put him in his other pocket. He got into his truck with his new companions, waved goodbye to his friend, and drove off on his way home. Johnny figured that the kittens were probably hungry. He stopped at the local pet store and bought some kitten milk replacement formula for them. When he got to the register, he was surprised at the price of the formula. He knew he couldn't buy this again without putting a small dent in his finances. Unfortunately, now that the river was almost empty, he wasn't earning nearly as much as he needed to care for his little family, and he most certainly couldn't adopt two stray cats who needed food as well. As he got back into his truck, Johnny sighed loudly. If things didn't change soon enough, he would have to uproot his family and move a few towns over where the river flowed into the sea. He had never fished in the sea, but he reckoned there were more fish than in the rivers, and therefore more work for everyone. However, he was dreading the day he would have to tell his wife he had failed to provide for her. He parked his truck in his driveway and checked on the kittens in his bag. He saw the gray one licking the tabby all over his face. They couldn't be more adorable. He stepped out of his truck and found his wife waiting at the front door for him. He kissed her on the cheek and then stepped inside. She trailed behind him as he rushed to the kitchen, watching as he set his empty bucket on the ground. Despite everything, she still smiled at him lovingly, and when he revealed what he was carrying in his pockets, her small smile turned to joy. She was surprised to see the kittens in her husband's bag, but she did not hesitate to stroke their heads as Johnny made their formula. He related to his wife the story of how he encountered the kittens while he was fishing. The woman's heart was touched and immediately took over the task of feeding the kittens. Johnny went upstairs for a bath, and when he came back downstairs, he saw that the gray kitten was already fed and playing with the hem of his wife's dress. She laughed at the kitten's playfulness. It was such a beautiful scene for Johnny, and he felt all the more guilty knowing that he would have to separate them soon. Meanwhile, the tabby kitten eagerly drank his milk from the bottle, showing how much he enjoyed it. He looked like he might fall asleep, with his eyes opening and closing. Johnny noticed how happy the kitten was eating. Since Johnny and his wife hadn't planned to adopt any cats, they hadn't arranged a specific place for the kittens to sleep, so Johnny's wife made a makeshift bed out of old sweaters in a flower basket. Then they all went to bed. The next morning, Johnny woke up to the gray kitten licking his face. He picked up the kitten and cuddled him. Even though Johnny found the kittens adorable, he knew he couldn't keep them. He had to find them a new home. With that thought, he got out of bed with the kitten. While feeding the kittens, Johnny called some family and friends asking if they wanted to adopt one or both of the kittens. Only his brother offered to help. Although he wasn't very excited about the idea, he agreed to visit the next day to check on the kittens. When Johnny's brother arrived with his daughter, she immediately asked if she could take home the tabby kitten. Johnny saw the kitten she meant. Since they met, the tabby had been reserved, staying quiet and only coming out to eat or play with his energetic brother. When Johnny's niece approached with excitement, the tabby kitten stayed still. As she got closer, the kitten affectionately sniffed her sparkly sandals and rubbed against her feet. She giggled, picked him up, and he happily followed her without resistance. Seeing his brother smile at his daughter and her new pet, Johnny felt glad the kitten found a home. Now he needed to find a place for his brother. Although Johnny offered his brother the gray kitten, he declined, only able to adopt one cat. Johnny bid farewell to his brother, knowing there would be more chances to find the kitten a home. Secretly pleased to spend another day with him, Johnny scooped up the kitten when it eagerly wanted to follow him to work. At the river, Johnny set up his gear, but luck wasn't on his side that day. Despite the disappointment, watching his kitten play brought him joy. Feeling dejected like the other fishermen, Johnny decided it was time for a change. He wasn't going to stay on the riverbank. That day, he went fishing with another person on a boat, hoping to catch some fish. Despite his efforts, he didn't catch anything. Each time he threw his net into the water, the fish swam away. The sound of a kitten meowing from the shore distracted him. He had left the kitten on the shore, thinking it might scare the fish away if he brought it on the boat. But the kitten kept mewing loudly and looking at a spot in the river. Johnny felt like the kitten wanted him to go closer to that spot. Ignoring the other fisherman's advice, he paddled towards the riverbank. Before he reached it, he saw something unusual. A fishing net left behind. Curious, he looked closer and saw many fish caught in it. Johnny called the other fishermen, and they all helped pull the net. It turned out to be a lucky day for Johnny because they caught a lot of fish. He was surprised by how the fish ended up in the abandoned net. This discovery was good news for all the fishermen in town. It meant they didn't have to leave town to find fish. They just needed to try new fishing methods. After loading the fish, the men paddled back to shore. The kitten ran to Johnny, who picked him up, praising him and sharing affection. They agreed to split the fish. Johnny stored his share in his truck and headed home with the kitten, feeling joyful. The next morning, Johnny woke up with the kitten beside him, deciding to keep him as his pet. His wife was happy with the decision. Johnny's life with the kitten continued, becoming like family. One day, Johnny's wife shared exciting news. She was pregnant after years of trying. Johnny believed the kitten brought luck into their lives. He thanked the universe for the day he found the stranded kitten by the riverside, feeling grateful for the beautiful ending. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.